There's really no need to give yourself that headache. Sometimes it's nice to have bits of asymmetry, places like hair, um, random details are good. Things that it would be weird in life to see it fully symmetric, like a hairstyle. Nobody's hair has exactly 5 strands going to the left and 5 strands going to the right. So it helps to have a little bit of variation for places where things could potentially be random. Things where it makes sense that they're in line, like you have a hand on one side and a hand on another. I know your hands, even if you look at them, your own hands are not entirely perfectly symmetric, especially your right hand, your dominant hand, will likely be a bit more mangled looking, a little bit thicker looking than your non-dominant hand, at least mine is. Just from it's where the wear it gets taken. It's your hands can be a bit thicker, a bit stronger. But it's not important to obsess about the asymmetries for things like that. Those details are so slight and subtle, and for making an efficient game model, it's not uh, super important to pay attention to every little thing like that. Though anywhere you can, it's nice to have a little bit of subtle asymmetry. It just makes things look a little bit more natural. Since though things in the world again are symmetric, you have two eyes, one on each side of the head. It's very unlikely, unless you've been blessed with genetics, that your face is exactly symmetric. Um, you're probably, if you're like me, your eyes are slightly off level, and um, but that's okay. Those are all of the fun differences. Oopsie, oopsie, that make us unique. And it can make for a more unique character design to include subtle asymmetries where it is efficient to do so. Um, but you don't need to go out of your way to do anything. Cool. Looking good. All right, I'm going to go ahead and just pop this a few more geometry details on here, and then I'm going to go ahead and throw this into Substance Painter so we can start getting some texture on it. Just because again, I think the texturing is one of the most fun parts for me. I'm going to go gloss right by UV unwrapping. I think we're just going to go ahead and smart project this thing. It's mostly geometric, mostly a cube. I think we'll be fortunate that we'll be able to get away with it, at least for the demonstration. Now I see that this shape here isn't exactly what this shape is. How this has a little bit more of a sill to it. I mean, we can get that in there a little bit really quick, but I don't want to spend too much time. We're just going to go ahead and pop a bevel in here. Great. Looking great. And we're going to go ahead and this computer piece has a little bit of a and details like this, even this computer panel, could have been painted in its entirety. Though, since we have the room for the geometry, since we're still very handsomely under our limit here, I think anywhere that you have the ability to use geometry, you should. It will make things look more realistic. Your physical geometry will catch in the light, and catch while the character turns around in ways that even normal maps won't. Normal maps still will look really nice, but they might not necessarily, depending on what you want to use the model for, how close you want to get to it, and how nice you'd like it to look. Anywhere that you can use geometry will certainly maximize detail, but obviously you don't want to go overboard because then you will be potentially your model will surpass the build weight. Um, for wires, real quick, anybody who doesn't know the trick, I always use curves for wires. If you're sitting there trying to extrude a cylinder, into a wire, you're gonna have a really bad time. I used to do that years ago before I learned about doing it with curves, and it will save you so much time to just use curves instead. I hope nobody in the audience has has been doing too many cylinder wires. And if you have, now you know there's another way. So we're gonna go ahead and just pop a couple wires on this guy here. Couple of dangly things. I mean, I don't even this thing is just connected somewhere in here. It doesn't really matter. It can be connected anywhere. Why there needs to be wires floating externally on this thing, it doesn't really make sense. You'd think all the wires would probably just be inside. They seem really kind of delicate and vulnerable being all exposed on the outside like this, but they look really, really cool. And that sometimes is more important than practicality, because at the end of the day, we want things that look awesome. And wires dangling off of things, quite frankly, look pretty cool. Um, it's just a fun, small detail to have. And when you're detailing things, when you're adding details, as the world goes, things go big to small, right? You start with your large shapes first, and then you move to your small shapes. Hey, I just want to make sure. Okay, just want to make sure nobody was like, "Hey, Kanteltec, we haven't been able to hear you for the past hour." I, life typically go from large to small. Think of a tree. The trunk obviously is much bigger than the branches. Everything sort of follows a 80-20 rule where 20% of the area will encompass 80% of the mass, 80% of the thing, and the remaining 20% or the remaining 80% will have the remaining 20% of the material. Um, Kind of how lightning strikes, how rivers flow, everything goes big to small. So you wouldn't want to have an over amount of small little extraneous details if you don't have enough large shape to compensate for these small pieces. And in this case, this TV, beautifully designed by Midjourney here, has one very large, fun orange structure and lots of little tiny wires, little tiny details, little tiny bits. And when you're designing something entirely from scratch and from your imagination, it's important to keep in mind distribution of detail, where you have places where the eye can catch a break and have large single objects like this large hull here. It has, small little details on it, but that's not really important as these are paint details, paint chips. Um, it's sort of where the bulk of geometry is in this case. How we have all these nice small details in these nice little pockets, places like underneath these little panels here with this large clusters of mechanics, lights, what have you. Um, and it's important to you when you're adding details and you're making them up entirely from scratch, to keep in mind to not go overboard with little details if you don't have enough main meat on the bones. You don't want to eat a dinner that's all sides, right? You don't want all green beans. You need some meat or whatever you want to have. It's important to have a good distribution of details, both big and small, um, on any model that you might build from scratch. Now, this isn't. That looks. I don't know what I'm doing here. That looks terrible. We're gonna make this little small wire down here instead. I'm gonna go ahead and move this, shrink it back down, and great. And we're just going to shrink some of these connectors. Um, Now, again, you can see that this thing is just shoved in here in the base. And You might say, "That looks janky." Well, kind of, but in all honesty, at the when this is textured and it's flying around, you really won't, it really won't matter, too much, how these piece elements are connected, as long as they are physically stuck into the thing. You don't need to worry about, "Oh, I gotta make sure this thing has a little a screw here, a little bracket, a little." You can, but there's really not. We want to use the details that we need, um, to convey as most information as possible while still being as friendly to the game engine and your sanity, to not have to sit there and make every single little thing. It's always about, less is more anytime that you can help it. Um, as I find that you can do a lot with a little, if you just get the basics and the large structures and the large elements, um, you'll be able to get away with a lot. Um, and at the end of the day, it's about feeling, rather than looking. How does it feel when you see it? Does it seem right? It's not about just looking with your eyes. You need to look with your heart. But you really do. I mean, you need to y- you as you create, as you build the experience, you just get a good vibe about something when it seems right, when it fits right, when it's composed well, when it flows well. The trained eye will know, what it's looking for. How to train that eye? Experience is really the only way. There's no shortcuts to it. You can't buy it. You can't ask ChatGPT about it. Um, Real experience comes, with time, and anybody can do it if you are willing to put in the time and the dedication. And you just keep at it, and then you'll be able to pretty much do whatever you want. Anything that comes to mind, anything that anybody might ask for. With enough experience, everything will build on everything else. And once you've built it once, it's 100 times easier to build it the second time around. All right, so we're looking cool here. I'm gonna go ahead and, well, do I have anything? Let's apply our mirror modifiers, and I am going to really quickly and really gently, just, um, oh, my drone pieces are under there. Hang on, let's not change those. Apply all rotations and scale, get everything to be uniform, and we're going ahead and just smart UV project. This does a semi decent job. Anything that is really heavily geometry based, like this giant cube, will work very well, with a simple smart project. It's still better to unwrap manually because you can define areas that are needed. Um, but in times where there's a lot of little pieces and it's not super important, I mean, honestly, unwrapping is like the most annoying and tedious thing that you can do as a 3D artist, really. Or maybe weight painting might be worse than that. But I am always happy to expedite the unwrapping process if possible. And in this case, we might just be able to get away with it. Now I just realized I have my reference sphere in this whole thing. I'm going to go ahead and just reproject it without that, so everything can take up more space on the tile. The tile is this, in this case, this green square where all of the pieces are, all of the UV maps are laying. You always want to use as much of this image tile as you possibly can, because things will just look better, if this is utilized efficiently. You wouldn't want to have, and it would be hard to do this since Blender probably won't do it for you. If you had this whole model and it was all just over here, you'd be wasting all of this delicious area to be used for texture detail. And again, I don't think Blender won't set you up that way. But just to keep in mind, if you happen to catch that your model is off to the side or something, it's important to use as much of the area as possible so we can get as much detail as possible. Now, I exported an FBX of this model, and I'm going to go ahead and pop that into Substance Painter here. And we're going to go ahead and take a look at our texturing, my favorite part, and the part where most of the love of this thing is going to come to life. For those in the audience who don't have Substance Painter, you should get it. It's very easy to use. It's a lot of fun, and it makes this whole job a lot easier. I'm sure there are other programs, other software that do similar things, and if you have those or would rather use that instead, that works too. And you can actually do a lot of texture work locally in Blender, almost similar to how you do it in Substance Painter, but you don't get all of the smart material capabilities and all of the nice brushes and little tools that Substance Painter has. I used to use Blender exclusively for texturing for no real reason other than I was too hard-headed to move to Substance Painter. But now that I'm in Substance Painter, it really just it's a lot of fun. It really can do a lot with a little. All right, so we have baked our model here. I'm just gonna zoom around it to make sure I didn't end up having any inverted normals. Let's check the model here. Looking good. So an inverted normal, just in case anybody doesn't know what that means. Um, a normal is the definition of which direction a face is facing. And if normals are inverted, it's kind of like saying the inside is on the outside, if that makes sense. It's like if you were to turn something inside out entirely. And when that is represented in Blender, you can see it with face orientation. It will show up as red. Red is bad. We don't want it to be red. It's very easy to flip it. We want everything to be blue. And this way, everything will look proper in Substance Painter and in the game. If you have something with inverted normals in the game, every now and then I'm on an island and I happen to see some asset that was maybe brought in from whatever those sites are called, like Turbo Squid, etc. And you can see it in the game where it almost looks like you can see through it, but it's still kind of there. It's likely because the normals are just flipped, and it's a pretty easy thing to correct for. But it's a very obvious thing if you don't correct it. So it is important to make sure all of our normals are facing the same way here. Um, Now I'm going to go ahead and bring this up on the side here. Ignore this. Um, a nice little drone. Now, Substance Painter is great because there are a lot of preset materials that can do a lot of the work for pretty efficiently. Now, let's go ahead and pop this dirty machinery material on this model here. It looks terrible. It looks very terrible. Why is it? It shouldn't look that terrible. Surprise to me. Did I not unwrap this? I did unwrap it. Let's try something else. What's happening here? Yeah, that looks great. I don't know what was going on with my machinery here. I don't know why. Is it supposed to look like that? That's that doesn't seem I'm Substance Painter has a library of smart materials that can make getting a nice base a little bit easier. I don't know why. I guess it's streaky. I thought it was going to look different. But sometimes maybe they don't exactly look how you want them to. So you have to do something else anyway. How about this nice painted steel? That's closer. Let's see if we can get some more of this paint And most of these smart materials, if you happen to use one of their preset smart materials to as a base, they will often come with sliders that you can try and use to get the detail where you want it. Now, this also is not what I want on this model. Let's try some of these other ones here. I don't like that either. Let's try. What does this look like? What even is that? I something is wrong here. This shouldn't. You know what's wrong? I think. Okay, obviously this is what's wrong. Something here was not projected properly, and I think is occupying too much of our texture field. As you can see, there's this large white surface here. I should be able to see the individual islands, so I think we have a stowaway here. I just need to figure out who it is. I don't know what it is, but it looks like there's probably one little thing. A lot of the fun of 3D modeling is trying to troubleshoot. And a lot of what I say is all day is, oh, why is this doing that thing? Just why isn't it this? Just do the thing. Um, and this is one of those instances. I don't know what I'm missing. Let's try and just export it again. Throw it out there. See what we got. Import it again. Huh. Weird. Nope. You know what it is? Just kidding. Figured it out. It's my wires. I did not. I need to convert these wires to mesh, and then I need to add them in with the
Yo,
projection. They
Kanteltec,
curves.
just
Hello.
real quick, they can't see the Substance Painter window.
Yeah, that's okay.
In
I'm
okay.
black back in Blender right now. Can you see the Blender window? It should
Yeah,
just be
yeah, I
like,
can see it.
yeah,
D-Boss
yeah.
just
Sorry.
couldn't. Okay, cool.
No, no, sorry. I popped back into Blender real quick. Thank you for stopping me. I don't want. If anybody can't see my screen or it seems that I'm amiss, please let me know. But yeah, I just popped back into Blender. I just need to modify my export here in order to get rid of this UV issue I have. So I brought in my wires with curves. Curves are great, but currently they are still curves and have no UV definition as they are not currently geometry. So we need to make all of our wires that we made, just convert them to mesh nice and easy. And now they have planar
I
faces, and
think
we can
you need to change your streaming screen.
fix this.
They're saying this in chat, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Where's the chat? I am still. Are you see the Blender screen, right? I am still in Blender. At Blender, or could you not see Substance Painter ever? Is that what you mean? Let me hang on. Can I? Okay, you know what it is? I see. Well, no need to worry. We haven't done anything fun in Substance Painter yet. Let me stop this, restart it, and get. Let me see. How do I do two of these? I can only do one at a time. Okay, I'll do one at a time. We're going to Substance. I'm just gonna leave it in Substance Painter, and I'll go ahead and just import this new model from Blender. Because it seems like it's only letting me do one at a time. Thank you very much for stopping me. I wouldn't want to have gotten all the way through Substance Painter and not have had anybody see anything. I am just going to
Yeah,
really quickly re
sorry.
what was that?
I was sorry to interrupt though. You're doing so good, but man,
No, 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 no,
yeah.
no, that's no, thank you. Thank you. Please interrupt me. I will never stop talking. So if yeah, no problem. Let me just you don't see the Substance Painter window? Or uh-oh. One problem solved. No problem. How about now? Do we see uh my substance painter window there? Oh, went out. I went out of it and now it's broken.
Yeah, see, now it's just loading.
Uh, hmm. Well, let me try and exit out and I will come back in here. Let's see what we can do about this. Um, hmm. Let's see. Sorry about that. Let's try and exit out. I have too many things open. Let me just let's try this. Here. Open the computer might be struggling because I have too many things open. Uh, oh, how about that?
So in the chat, it says if you restream, you might want to go on screen instead of the app. So when you stream, you can stream the whole screen. And then you can go between Blender and Substance Painter easily.
Sure, I can do that. Yeah, I guess I should. Let me try that then. I'm gonna exit my Blender here. Sorry about that, everybody. Well, technical difficulties. Um, oh boy. Let me save this. Okay, we're gonna get out of Blender.
Mhm.
Um, right.
Zype shared it in the chat if you want to check it out.
Um, stop streaming. Share my screen. Entire screen. Share my screen. Uh, how's that? You got it? All right. Yeah, all right.
Let's go.
All right. Sweet. Okay, so I've got our model here in Substance Painter. I'm re-importing the new version where the wires are hopefully working as they should. Let's go ahead and just rebake these mesh maps. All right. Always love baking the mesh maps. You get to see this fun little as the computer is determining where the edges are, where the faces are, where the ups, the downs. It's always fun to watch this little thing load in. I'm gonna go ahead and quit Blender. Yes, sure. What's up? Sure. Yeah, I don't. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, I was just trying to find the chat. I don't know why I can't. Yeah, that is a good question. It depends on what I'm doing. Sometimes it is actually better to do it in an exploded view if you don't want the pieces, if things are intersecting at all, if you don't want the sort of the baked Substance Painter's ambient occlusion to kind of interfere with things. It can be a little bit easier to do things in pieces. Um, for something like this singular drone here, I find that it is best to have it as just one piece because it might as well be one piece. Everything is nice and contained. Everything I want everything to talk to everything else. But sometimes, say I'm making an avatar and I'm gonna put some really cool bling necklace on him. I'm gonna put a jacket on him. But those might be separate from the avatars. Let's say the avatar might need to run around and be naked, but also have the nice necklace on them. Substance Painter does a really nice job of sort of baking the ambient occlusion of everything together. And you can use that with these smart materials to add in shadows where you want. However, we wouldn't want shadow lines on the alien of a necklace that isn't necessarily always going to be there. And you can just paint out, manually paint around those parts of the ambient occlusion map in Substance Painter, but I think I find it's easier, saves me time, saves me headache. Anything that might potentially be separate, I find it is better to bring it in separately into Substance Painter. If everything will always be presented together, you can bring it in all together. That is a very good question. I have had the headache where I'll bring everything in all at once, and then I'll run into trouble down the road. I'm gonna go ahead and maximize my window here, make this as big as possible. All right. So, well, I can't guess not as big as possible. I need to see my little screen on the side here. So anyway, uh, now that we're in Substance Painter and it's working, um, we can get going on this. So what was happening before? There was one of these, all three of these wires were not properly UV projected, so they were just coming up really big, covering the whole UV map. So anything you put over it was ruining everything underneath. See, now this is looking more like how I thought it might look, rather than all streaky. Um, if everything doesn't come in perfect and clean into Substance Painter, it will just get super janky super quick. So a lot of times, I have to go back and forth and try and get sort of the most optimal setup for Blender or for Substance Painter. Everything sort of needs to be um, as clean, spread out, spaced out, as efficient as possible. No UVs overlapping. If they are, it will affect how you paint in Substance Painter. And again, anywhere that you can sort of smart UV project things like this nice big floating lunchbox here, it's pretty much a cube, and Smart Project works really great with cubes and annoying little things that it would just drive you crazy to have to sit there and individually unwrap it. Though anytime when you are dealing with an avatar, something that is going to move and bend, and you want it to look a little bit cleaner, I find it's very important to manually do the UVs. Otherwise, if you leave it up to Blender, it will put seams in the wrong place. It'll just put a seam right through the middle of the face, and you will kind of subtly see it in the game. And though the seam is going to be somewhere, and you can't get rid of it entirely, it's better that it's not right down the middle of the face, because then that just looks bad, and nobody wants that. So it's good to be selective where you can. But uh, for things like giant cubes, it's not as important to unwrap it. If you can get away with it, sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. If you can't, um, rip, good luck. Unwrap, then you'll have to unwrap it. But if you can, um, that's great. So sometimes with textures, there'll be some very interesting, weird thing. And in this case, there's an LCD screen, and what I like to do sometimes is just pop over to Midjourney and LCD screen, green, LCH. And I will try and utilize Midjourney for textures, things like smoke, things that might be annoying to find otherwise. I find that Midjourney is great for a lot of things. It doesn't do it doesn't make things that sort of stand on their own. but using it for maybe like these little buttons or something, it might work. That's not what I wanted. Obviously, we're talking to AI here, so if you're not, it might get a little confused of what I want. I don't know how to. Hmm, how can I say this in a way that it understands? Well, um, LCD dot screen. See if we can get the dots. If that doesn't work, um, you can always just, you could always Google it, or we can try and make it manually, which is annoying, and I don't want to do that if we don't have to. Um, but we'll see where we end up here. If Mid Journey can't save the day for us, I'm still going to go ahead and get a nice glass here. Get a little bit of a glow on it. Make this a little bit more of a blue. I don't know what these edges are. Get rid of that. I'm gonna do that manually. So again, Substance Painter is great because you can define, uh, you can paint materials through defined areas, either through areas where you have put UV seams or areas where there is a difference in geometry. In this case, I had separated the screen from the hull. So I was able to really easily just select it as a separate object to apply just this screen to it. Um, the other way would be you could manually go ahead and click on each individual face if you want. That's a little bit more of a tedious way to do it. Or this would be an instance where having proper UV seams is important because this will work with the UV areas as well. And in this case, it'll work with just whatever UV area already happens to exist. As you can see, I clicked on this one. It has Blender had outlined it as this piece. So this whole piece here is now this material, but you can see it's kind of just this random piece because we didn't define the UVs. We just let Blender solve our problem. And it can make things a little bit more tedious when you're trying to do that, but I didn't really care about that. I just wanted this thing to be slap some orange on here. Uh, if I needed to, I could just select the other faces manually. Now, in life, there's little bits of dirt and grunge on things. I'm gonna get some of this dirty glass here. I just want to get a little dirty edges here. I mean, if the hull is all dirty and decrepit, it would serve to believe that dust and dirt would collect in the crevice of these screens here. So it's nice to get a little bit of that in there as well. Um, for the rest of this, a lot of these other parts look like they're made out of just steel, sort of a black painted steel, maybe plastic for these little bobble bits at the end here. Let's see if we can let's get a plastic here. Let's get I don't know. What do you think? Plastic scuffed. Let's try that one. And nice. That looks pretty cool. So let's go ahead and just define. Oops. Um, this little cube in the corner means to select an entire mesh area, and this one here is to define a UV chunk or just an individual island, and this individual cube is to define faces. And if we wanted to manually paint the detail, obviously we could just go into our brush and be like, and just paint, wherever we wanted there to be this black area. Obviously, we don't want that. We're gonna get rid of that there. And it looks like here there's some a little bit of black metal on the inside of this band. So we're gonna go ahead and let's bring in some. Let's see. How about this one looks good. Steel painted. Yeah, look at that. That's the grungy steel we're looking for. And we're going to define that just in this center part right here. I missed a little. Being a little too hasty with my clicking. Um, okay. See again, if you if you don't define your UV seams, I could have easily in Blender defined a UV seam along the inner part of this, and then I would be able to just one-click it. Instead, me one-clicking it also brings in this other junk. So we'll have to go through individually and just paint the faces individually, which doesn't take very long to do. So it's not that big of a deal for something like this, but it can very quickly become a big deal if you're trying to work through a lot of a large project, a lot of client work. It's good to save time where you can. But in this case, personally, I think the biggest time saver was me not having to sit there and UV unwrap the thing because I don't like doing that. If it's just tedious. You know, it feels good, I guess, if you when you're done with it and you're like, oh yeah, I'm accomplished. But I wanted to just jump into the textures for this demonstration because nobody's gonna have fun watching me unwrap the UVs. Um, so I am adding a new material here, and I'm giving it a little bit of an emissive quality to it. And I'm going to go ahead and just manually dot these lights that are on the side of the hull here. Um, we're just kind of going to go about it and just kind of individually just pop a couple of lights here, you know, and it doesn't have to be exactly how this thing is. I mean, normally I would typically try and stick pretty closely to the reference if I was making something, um, I guess professionally. But for this, I'm just going to go ahead and pop a few on here, just so we don't waste all the time me trying to exactly replicate these dots. So usually for lights, I like to do it in two batches. I do one where it's a little bit of a darker color, and then I'll sort of just duplicate that or whatever. We're going to redot it anyway, and then I will do another on top of it that is closer to white to define the center of that LED. Now I'm going to go ahead and just add another black mask, and then I'll just sort of go through and individually kind of dot these lights here. Now we're actually working in 2K. We have a 2K on our viewer. Let's bump this up to 4K so we can see some magic happen on this one. Now, actually, unfortunately, I'm pretty sure Nifty currently only supports 2K textures for drones, which is more than enough because they're so small. So there really isn't that we wouldn't necessarily need, or we can't use 4K anyway. But it did look a lot better for that second you saw it, didn't it? Um, Now for lights, they don't lights don't exactly have hard edges, so I usually will like to add a little bit of a little subtle blur, nothing too crazy, um, just to sort of make it a little bit more like a have a little bit more of a naturalistic fall off to it. As you can see, without it, you have these very hard pixelated lines, and with the blur, it just looks a little bit more how like light actually works. Now, with that, as you can see, we really quickly, really easily added in some additional detail here without having to add in any geometry. We could have made these lights individual little diodes, but each one would maybe be, 30 faces. Maybe we could get it down to maybe 8 if we want to be really simple and conservative to it. But then now you have however many of them, and that's going to add to the build weight. It would, look cooler maybe, but um, again, we don't want to add to the build weight anywhere we have to. Now, if we look closer to this, we can see to the side here that there are all these little some metal lines, some blue lights too. So we can add some additional details here as well. We're going to add some more lights. I go ahead and just duplicate what I already have, and I'm going to just change it to blue. Um, and we're going to go ahead and add in a couple more of these little lights, and they look like they might actually be squares. So I'm going to go ahead and find my get a nice rectangle, just a square. Actually, I can just and it'll make perfect little squares. And I'm going to go ahead and just pop a couple of blue squares somewhere on this. Sorry, started that over. There we go. That looks great. And put another one down here. Great. And then same trick. I'm gonna go ahead and just duplicate that material just so I can really quickly and easily make a new version of it where that's a little bit brighter. I'm going to add a new black mask to that. And then we are going to go ahead and just add in a little touch of the brighter part of the diode right in the middle here. And it's subtle. It seems like it's an unnecessary, but even from afar, you'll be able to recognize that it is now something that is emitting light. Just because things that emit light tend to be brighter in the center and have a fall off. Anywhere that you can incorporate as many real life elements as possible, the better. It'll just make your models look a little bit more realistic. Um, and I just think that looks a little bit nicer. So there are these little metal lines on this thing. I'm not really sure exactly what's going on here. We could handle this in two ways. We could either bring in a some sort of sci-fi texture that we can just use as a bump map or as an alpha map, or we can manually paint in some of these lines here. And for the sake of this, I'm going to manually paint some of them in just so I can show you how I may do that. For this, I think they all look like steel, or they'll look nice as steel with this against the black. So I'm just going to go ahead and pop nice stainless steel over top of everything. Oops, add a black mask. I like to work with masks anywhere that I can. I think anytime that you can work non-destructively will save you a lot of time. Even if I'm adding little details, like little lines, I like to work with masks in case I want to change what the underlying material is, the underlying color. I found that working with masks is more efficient for me. If you don't, I found that you don't like working that way, then don't do it. Definitely don't. You work whatever way is comfortable to you. It's most important that you find the skills and the techniques that best suit your work style. I don't think you should try and do somebody else's tricks just because they said to do them. Um, because if you don't like it, there's no point in fussing around with it. Um, but so I am just going to go ahead and add in a couple of manually painted lines here. Um, I don't know what we're doing. Just kind of you know little metal things. There's just something going on here, just to give it a little bit more something. So this isn't just like an empty area. Again, what I mentioned earlier about defining having balances of detail. We obviously wouldn't want this sort of metal all this metal patterning and these little lights all over the thing, because having detail everywhere might as well be having detail nowhere, if that makes sense. It's the contrast in life that creates the interest. It's the black and the white allowing the two to exist. If you have you can't just have sauce on your pizza, right? You need to have some bread too. Um, and though sauce is important, and sauce, little details are the sauce. But used sparingly, they come off tastefully and appropriate. If there's too much of them, it's just it's just harder to look at. It's nice to be able to have places where your eye can take a break. Like I can just be like, orange, nice and calming. Reminds me of the sun. And then you see this nice part in here. It's like, oh, what's in here though? What's in this panel? So cool, so crazy. Um, and it's much more interesting than if this entire thing was just like all these weird things and it was all just the same everywhere. If it was all the same detail, having the contrast of materials and of detail, I think is what makes a model look really interesting. Um, Now I'm gonna go ahead and just fill out some more of these parts here. Let's get some more of this. We got our plastic material. I'm gonna go ahead and just make all of our wires black plastic because why not? um, yeah, look at that, looking good. Um, Let's make these, well, let's make our connectors. What do you think? Grungy metal? Sure. Get it in there. Great. Very cool. And the antenna are more of a clean steel. Let's try the scratch steel actually. That might look nice. Oh yeah, that looks super nice. Um, as you can see, it's very simple, very quick and easy to get a nice amount of detail and material using Substance Painter with just a few tricks. Now, here's one downside, obviously, of smart projecting. You can see there's all these little lines all over this. These are places where there are seam lines. And typically, you'd only want there to be one on a cylinder. It would be, one tastefully somewhere hidden in the back, somewhere hidden around. But we have two or three of them, four. This is because we smart projected. Again, it saved time on the projection on the UV unwrapping, but now our UVs are a mess and we have all these unnecessary lines. However, they still look pretty cool because it doesn't really detract from the general sci-fi vibe we're going with. So not really that much of a problem in general for this model. So we are fortunate there that we can kind of just ignore it, in my opinion. Again, if it's on like your avatar's face, you're not going to want to have some gaping seam line go right up their eyeball, because you're going to look at it all day every day and it's going to look gross. But this random antenna, who's to say it doesn't have these metal bits to it? Who knows? um but anyway, uh see, look at that, just with a little bit of shape, a little bit of material, and we're already um, looking really cool. And it only took maybe about 90 minutes minus the technical difficulties to get this set up. Obviously, this still needs a lot more work. I could maybe spend couple more hours on this, really making it look nice and realistic, getting all the details in here. Say we want this nice little detail. There's like this little indent on this plastic piece, and we don't have one of those um, on our model because we didn't model the geometry in order to save on resources. But fear not, because we can very easily add in these lines in with the texture, and it's much more efficient and game friendly to do it this way. I'm going to go ahead and just make a new material, take the height down a little bit to say that it is an indentation, and I'm going to make a black mask. Make sure we're working in symmetry mode here because this is going to be symmetric. Sorry, there it is. My symmetry line, you'll get this nice red line in the center. And again, this whole thing isn't perfectly symmetric, but these little pieces were made with the mirror modifier. So these pieces are symmetric. And we can go ahead and just draw a nice little indent line uh, on these pieces. And now, just like that, obviously this isn't exactly the same thing, but we are looking very close for this demonstration. And these lines, this panel work, is a big part of the amount of detail that I typically add into it. Adding seams, adding panels on this. See, we have all these little lines here on the side of the hull. These little vent lines. Those vents can also just be this texture. We're gonna need to bring this line over top of our. Let's bring it over our rust on top of our hull area here. Gonna add in a new mask, and we're gonna just go ahead and put in some of these lines here, make it a little bit thicker. looking really cool. Um, Sorry, I keep going back and forth. I'm trying to make these exactly straight. Now, I'm sure there are, there's better ways to make lines, right? Um, but there's no harm in just doing a little some manual line work. How many are there? Seven? How many do we have? We have six. Another one right here. Just for the hell of it. There we go. And now it pretty much looks like there's little vents there. And it's much more easy and efficient and game friendly to just have these as a painting because it won't add any weight to your build. It will add a little obviously to the image, but images are much more efficient. Texture images are much more efficient than geometry for games. So we didn't have to extrude each of these pieces. And now also we can move them. We can move details after the fact. We can adjust things. If you made it a mesh, say I made all these little wires mesh. If I say I was like, I hate this one, I don't like this, I'd have to go through, delete it, bring the model back in. But instead, I can just go ahead and paint all of these nice little details. And it's much more efficient, much more friendly, much more easy to work with than doing it with geometry. Um, Now it looks like we got this whole mess of wires here. I don't know what's going on here. This thing needs to be cleaned up. And we can make the wires in the exact same way that we've been making the lines, and just with this nice little raised portion. I'm going to go ahead and take a new, go ahead and get my plastic material. Let's see here, plastic. It's going to duplicate it out of black mask. And we're going to take this one up a little bit. And I'm going to use probably the pen tool for this one because it's annoying. Now, it's weird with something like this because there's all these wires and they don't really connect to anything. Um, uh, but that's okay. We're going to go ahead and put them in anyway. Now, with the pen tool, it can be better for making things like topical wires. Because it's much easier to modify this after the fact than it would be to have to erase the line that you drew, draw another one with the pen tool. It makes these really smart, intuitive curves that you can much more quickly and easily um, just put over your model, and we can get some really nice little. Let's maybe these are. I kind of like that. There's some hard lines. Um, yeah, I don't know where these are connecting to. I don't know. Somewhere under here. Um, Obviously we'd want to you might want to define a little port. We could maybe even just like draw a little port for this to go to. Let's go ahead and do that actually. Here, we'll move this wire over here and instead let's add in a little just add in a little section here where this wire happens to connect to. Let's say we just want to paint in like a little cube here, a little port, little plug, little something, a little area for it to go in. Look at that. Doesn't that look nice? It almost looks like it makes sense. Um, and it's really as easy as that. To add in small details, and it really is in these small details, in the dirt, in the grunge, in the edgeware, anywhere you can pull in pieces of reality into your models will always improve the final quality. Um, I'm going to pop over to the base color mode here, and we're going to paint a little manual gradient. I like to do a little bit of a gradient on my models usually, a little bit of a, uh, you know, high to low fade, starting from the top down. So I'll sort of just take my base material, I'll duplicate it, make it a little bit brighter. Then I'll just sort of very softly feather in a little bit of a lighter color, just so there's a little bit of a tonal shift um, throughout the hull here. There's really no reason to do this beyond personal preference and aesthetic. I just sort of like the way things look when they have a little bit of a gradient to them. Typically, you would want to have anywhere that something is higher up. It's going to be a little bit brighter potentially. Right now, we have all this. We got this dust layer on top here. I'm just going to turn that off so we can see this a little bit better. Um, but what I like to do is paint in a little sort of manual um, highlights on the edges, corners, tops of things. Uh, I just in the whatever orientation the thing might be um, in the final. If it's going to be facing upwards, you can paint the highlights on the top. So it looks like there's some realistic lighting sort of baked into it. It can help um, exaggerate the areas that you're trying to make stand out. Um, and again, contrast is key for creating interest. Um, and having everything that can help your eye when you're looking at a model in a game determine what part is up, what part is catching light, what have you, the better. And I'm going to go ahead and make another duplicate my material, make it even brighter still. And we're going to go ahead and manually paint just some edge highlights here. Now, I might not necessarily typically do this, but I just wanted to show how you can do it for this. Now, let's go ahead and just paint all of these. Now, we can also do this um, within Substance Painter with a smart material. There's not really a reason you don't necessarily need to paint it by hand. But it's very good to be able to do things manually because sometimes there is no automated way to do it. And you don't want to be like, well, I'm stuck. I give up now. If you can build anything by hand and manually, um, there's really nothing you can't make at the end of the day. All of the practices, all of the principles for design are the same, no matter what you're making. You could be making a floating TV, Banana Man, whatever it is. The design principles are all the same. And the more you make things, the more you'll intuitively be able to lean on those design practices, and you'll be able to make uh, nice models easily. Um, So now that we've painted in some of our edges here, I'm going to go ahead and just feather them out a little bit, especially at the bottom here. I don't really need as much of it. I just want to feather that out. I want it to be such a hard line. Again, this isn't necessarily for realism. This is just a little bit of, personal preference, personal aesthetic. I mean, typically edges of things are worn. Um, but whether or not they're worn or not, I still like to add in a little bit of manual detail where light might be interacting with the model, just because it does make it look ever so slightly more realistic and natural, and more interesting in the game. I mean, all that it comes down to is making it looks better in game, and that's what is important here. So I can toggle this on and off these two layers. You can see it's very subtle what we've done here with this subtle gradient going up the hull, and then with these subtle lines on the edges. Um, it's subtle, but I think it is an important step uh, that I always sort of like to do with any model. Let's see here. Um, so yeah, I mean, for the most part, all that's left to do is, finish it. um, yeah, I would just spend the time going through everything and adding in as many little details as I can. We'd still want to get this. We'd want to get this screen going, but rather I don't want to have to make everybody watch me. Just have to. Oh, we see. We're getting closer here. We're getting closer. Let's try LCD screen front on. Try that. Usually when I'm dealing with Midjourney, I'll sort of just spam like 3, 4, 5 prompts all at the same time, because I usually don't know what what language Midjourney is looking for specifically. So I'll just try a couple of random things. Hang on, sorry. Um, let's get some more of this black edge around the screen here. Again, you might be looking at this, say Kanteltec. This looks nothing like the model. You've barely got any of the details, and you would be correct because I have skipped quite a few of them to get through this demo here. But the ones we do have look really good. So um, at least there's that. Now I'm going to go ahead and just add in a little bit of this black line here. Now, as you can see, this rounds here, and we can actually we can paint that curve in since selecting the faces has obviously given us a hard geometry edge, but we can just as easily go through and just erase this corner here with our nice brush. Let's turn on our smoothing a little bit and try and see if we can just take this curve in a little bit here. Again, maybe we don't do that because this is going to be stuck like this. I guess the better way to do this, if we were to have done this properly, would have been to do this with a bevel in Blender. And we can always go back into Blender and bring in a new model, but I don't want to spend all day just jumping back and forth, especially since I think, again, most of the importance here is in the texturing. I think of most of what it means to bring something to life is being able to properly define the material qualities. If you're able to make clean and distinct and presentable materials, you can pretty much make anything. Now, I said earlier, what if this thing was made out of wood, right? It's really as simple as just making it look like it's made out of wood. Ta-da! Just like that, it's now wood. um, simple as just putting a new material on. The underlying geometry is important for defining structure, but to define truly what it is, it's all in the materials. Um, we could. This was the material I made for my crystal guy. Like now it's a giant crystal. um, easy peasy. So when you're designing anything, it's important to get the geometry that you need, um, and never any more than that. You don't need to spend time building things that aren't going to be necessary components. You don't want to overload your model with any heavy weight. Any time that you can use textures instead of geometry, you definitely should. I find it's a much more friendly process all around to design and to incorporate into games. Um, I mean, I think this is looking super cool for not very much difficulty. Now, so we have these areas here on the lower part where there's a bit of, I don't know, sci-fi something. Oh, look at this. Look, we have screens. How about that? It's working. All right, let's try another one. Let's do another one. I like these dots. This gives me something to work with. This isn't perfect because this isn't scaled enough. Can I just zoom out? But we can just go ahead and dump this in here just so we can see how this works. Again, these dots are too big and I won't be able to scale them just because there's all this black area around it. Don't know where it went. Bring it back. But with this nice black and white dot pattern, again, it's pretty easy enough to find, make, whatever have you, a dot pattern. Uh, so you don't need to worry about trying to get that into Midjourney. But with it, I'm going to duplicate my screen layer here and make a new material that is going to be have a much higher emission to it. I'm actually going to go ahead and turn off, I'll leave the base color on. And these are going to be our dots. And with that, we are going to use this texture we got as a alpha mask to define which areas are dots and which areas are not. Um, with our new material here. And now I'm just going to scale this and sort of line it up with my screen here. Again, as you can see, this screen was not big enough. Did not have enough dots from Midjourney, but I'm going to go ahead and use it anyway. Just for this, I'm just going to go ahead and position this right on top here. And there we go. That's looking, well, I don't like it because it's too big, but it will work for this all the same. Typically with screens, at least I think it'll look cool to have a bit of a highlight around the edges. And we can paint that manually, actually. We don't really need to rely on anything here. I'm going to go ahead and just get my brush here for my opacity, scooch everything over. And we are going to just manually paint in some nice edge glows to this thing. Doesn't help me see it. I'm just gonna paint, 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 paint. Put this all in here. Um, uh, go. It's important where you have transitions, where things end, corners, crevices, that there's some sort of communication happening. And that is usually with, a little bit of what we had earlier, a little bit of dirt in the edge. Typically, corners will collect. What was that?
Told her we need to be quiet because Dad's sleeping.
Sleeping? I think perhaps that was not a comment. I think that might have been not for me. That's okay. No worries. Uh, but anyway, so yeah, I like to do a nice little some edge glows on my screen here, just to sort of bring this out. Now I'm going to, oops, not duplicate. I'm going to add a black mask here. Let's save this. Oops. And we're going to paint a little, let's take this off of symmetry mode, and we're gonna do one of those like cartoony like streaks through it. I don't know. Let's see how that looks, how that works. If we end up liking it or we end up hating it. I think I might like it. That's more of that. Great, looking cool. Um, I mean, you always want to ask yourself when you're making something, does it look cool? If the answer is no, well, keep working on it until it looks cool. um, and to make something look cool, again, to me, it's about defining accurate materials, bringing as many elements from real life as you can into your model. Um, Contrast is always key. Um, and yeah, I don't know. Again, these dots are way too big, but it seems like Midjourney here is just giving me small dots. Again, I would probably just Google and find a dot matrix and just kind of use that. Again, I don't want to spend all the time just watching me search for textures, but again, this will work for um, getting the idea across. You would obviously just go through the same step, but have these be much smaller. I could manually, since I have part of it, I guess I can go through it. Let's show how to use what you have. Let's say this is all you have. Let's say you were working with somebody and they said, Kanteltec, I have this square dots. I need you to use this. You can't use anything else. If you don't use this, you're disqualified. Um, and we can use this, though it would be kind of a pain to try and tile this. As you can see that we're getting all this extra junk. We're going to go ahead and turn off the repeat on this one, and we can just go ahead and copy paste it. And then put it somewhere else. There we go. Obviously, these don't exactly line up in the middle because this was probably not designed to do this. There we go. That looks great. I'm going to, let's see where that seam line is. The seam line is right about here. We're going to go ahead and just paint out this little line here. I can't, hang on. Just, sometimes if you already have a mask on something, I will just throw the whole thing into a folder and then paint a new mask over that. That's just like a little trick. If you have like an ambient occlusion mask, but you need to get rid of part of it, but there's already a mask. How do I paint over a mask where it's automated? You would just make a new folder and make a new mask in that folder. It's really handy how intuitive Substance Painter is. If you've ever worked with Photoshop, it's so much like it. It's very easy to use once you get the hang of it. Obviously, there with anything, there's a little bit of a learning curve to get the hang of things, get the hang of where the buttons are, um, and how to use things. But once you do, you really can make anything. Now, again, I am going about this dot pattern here in the most complex way possible. Please do not do this. If you were to do it on your end, do not try and sit here and line up the dots. You can just I would just try and find a new base to work with, but I'm just trying to demonstrate how you can potentially use what you have uh, when you have nothing else. However, I'm gonna be honest here. This thing had a little bit of a distortion to it, and I don't think these things are gonna line up in a way that is going to these aren't going to be able to cleanly tile into each other. Well, okay. So remember when I said sometimes you can work with what you have anyway? This is not one of those times. You're gonna want to. You're ideally you would just get a smaller dot pattern and just use that to represent this rather than trying to do this because we're gonna get all these awful streaks, all these awful lines where things don't meet up properly if we were to do it this route. And again, Midjourney is being uh, surprisingly difficult for what I thought was an easy question. It's always so funny with Midjourney. Sometimes you give it the most obscure, most random concept, gets it perfectly. First try. LCD screen dots, something that exists in real life, something that should be easy to find a reference of. It's like I don't know what it says, "Oh, I know. You want a blank screen. You want a blank computer monitor." That is like that's not even you're not even close with that one. So is AI coming for our jobs? Probably. Is it coming for our jobs yet? Not yet, fortunately. Um, so we all can rest easy for now. Um, let's try and get a little computer thing here. In the sci-fi digital panel. Let's try that. And we're going to try and get something to represent something that looks close to this. Again, ideally, if you were to do this professionally, you would capture the detail specifically. We have maybe one, two, three, 5 modules here, these two little orange ones. And you would sit here and sort of paint this out specifically. Um, for this, since it's my thing, this is not. See, look at this. It gives you all this junk. Sci-fi panel, small, front on. By that. I've probably made panels from before because I've definitely done this method before. But I would love to get one that I can slot in here real quick just so I can show how you can use images and image textures to achieve a great amount of detail with a very, very little amount of work. And Midjourney, really, what is the sm- sci-fi panel small front on? What even is this thing in the top? I don't know what's going on here. um, let's do small. Let's do sci-fi panel, control panel. All sci-fi panel with lights. One of those will do something cool. Oh, there we go. The first one got something. Great. Um, so yeah, here we go. We got some cool looking, I don't know what we got here, gizmos. It's something, and you didn't have to draw it, is the important part. That's not the one I wanted. I wanted this one. Let's just go ahead and refresh these just in case we get anything else that looks cool. Oh, this looks cool. Look at this whole thing. Let's grab this one. That's looking great. All right. So now that we have our cool looking image here, that looks like something that looks cool. We're going to just bring the whole thing into Substance Painter here, and we're going to bring that whole thing and we're going to slap it down on our model here. Let's go ahead and find where it goes. And we're going to just position this and scale it up. So only the parts that we want. Let's see. Again, this isn't perfect for this, as this was not designed specifically for this and doesn't really look like our reference exactly. But what it is something cool that we can drop in here really quickly to get some added details with very little effort. Let's leave it right there for now. And now it's not giving us any light because we don't have anything dropped into the emissive. Uh, it was just the base color. There we go. That's looking great. And now it's obviously it's everywhere. It's all spilling out. Easy peasy. We're going to make a new mask and we're going to put it just in this side of this little panel here. So now we have a little bit of something going on in this panel, and it really didn't take any time at all. We didn't have to model a whole bunch of these little bits and pieces. Again, this is not accurate to this. If you were to want to sit here and actually make this, you could draw these all by hand, or you could be like, whatever, it's my thing. It's going on my island. I don't care. This looks cool enough. And you know, if it's your own concept, you should always be able and willing to make changes anytime you think something might be more efficient. Um, let's say here, I actually maybe want these buttons instead rather than these controls. I actually, this little screen here looks pretty cool. Maybe it'll work for it'll work for the screen next to it. I'm going to take this other one here. I'm going to bring that in a Substance Painter as well. Um, Now, again, if you do this method, you'll want to use things like this sparingly, where it's sort of like a small little detail that would just be kind of a pain to do it any other way. Um, I wouldn't rely on a mid-journey texture or an image for a main element. You could if you were okay with the jank, but there will be notable jank with AI images, and I prefer to build anything important um, by hand, just so I can very cleanly define, where I want my materials to be. Um, so I'm going to, again, I know this isn't exactly what the concept is. It has this little green screen, maybe some other little buttons. But for this, I'm going to just plop in this cool little screen I have here because I think that looks cool. And I'd like that to be I wonder if I can, let's see if we can make this green actually. Or, well, the screen is already green. Maybe orange is okay. But yeah, it's a great way to sort of get some added detail um, in a really game friendly, really light way. I mean, we can do a similar technique for adding some additional sci-fi metalwork to the top here. Let's just go ahead and I actually saw some stuff that generated earlier that might be of use for this. These sci-fi panels, um, I don't like those actually. I'm gonna make new ones. Imagine sci-fi metal panel. Oopsies. Wires. Um, and now I am going to hopefully generate a new image that I am going to use as an alpha mat to get some additional bump detail on here with hopefully not a lot of work. Okay, so a bunch of weird things. I'll take this one. It's always um, with anything if you're working with AI, it's very unlikely that it will be the the first try. You'll likely need to it's a couple times. Let's see. So that is our dark steel. Where our light steel here? That was our antenna. Let's go ahead and duplicate the material. I like to make individual folders and materials for anything that is going to have a great enough potential degree of difference. In this case, I made a new material because these pieces are going to represent just this metal detail on top of the hull here and has nothing to do at all with the antenna. So I'm not going to put it and include it with that same material. I just need to put this in the right spot here. And let's see. Can I? No, no, no. Time out. Time out. Time out. Hang on. Where is my? Where is this supposed to be? Oh, here it is. Um, and you just try and line it up wherever it is supposed to be on the model. And with that alone, we can add in additional panel detail like this with very little effort. If you just sort of rely on some nice generated materials, we can get this additional sort of panel work on here. Again, this would be a prime candidate for why you should unwrap things properly because, as you can see, our material has run off the edge here. But have no fear. We can honestly just turn on the repeater on this, and we can get some additional lines. Because I'm not super concerned exactly what detail is where for this. I just wanted a little detail somewhere, and now we have a little detail a little something. We got some junk on the top here, and I don't want that, so I'm going to. This is already an alpha mask, so same trick as before. Just add a new folder and then drop the whole thing in that folder. I make it a white mask in this case because I want to keep most things, and then I'm just going to remove it from this top. piece here because I don't want any of that to be on there. And we can make this. Let's take off the dirt. What does that look like? Great. And there you have it. Another great way to add little details. So if you can't manually paint them, it's always nice to add in a little underlying texture just to get some more detail. You use both, and I recommend using both anytime you can. Usually relying on just one or the other will either give you a headache or just not look good. Relying solely on AI probably won't look the best, and relying solely on you painting everything probably will stress you out. So anywhere where you can be efficient in all aspects of the design process, I recommend going for it. Because as long as it looks good in the end and it works, um, that's what's important, really. If you can save yourself sanity doing something like a cool, easy way, I definitely suggest trying to explore any route that is the easy way for something like this. Um, because ultimately, in the end, it needs to work well and it needs to look good. Um, However you got there, that's up to you. Um, but I tried to the easiest route. Um, does anybody have any questions at this time? Uh, oops, that over here. I'll take that as a no.
Are you gonna
Let's
smoke
see.
some weed with me or what?
Oh, hell yeah, bro.
Well, there you go. Since no one else had a question, I'll chime in. DJ Jagman.
Uh, sure. Uh, Feel free to shout it out or that's okay. No worries, no rush. I just wanted to realize I've been talking a lot and I haven't asked if anybody has any questions. So I'll make sure there's opportunity to talk as some of this might be very confusing. Um, Gonna add some more of this black paneling here. Oops, I added too much of it. Uh, Maybe I don't like that. I don't like that. I changed my mind. I'm not going to be doing that for that whole thing. There was a little bit on the side here. Let's maybe just do some of it. Let's do just this portion, and then we're going to remove half of it. Uh, we'll call it lighting. I that might be a more particular question I might need to work with them individually to answer. The lighting, sort of how the material quality looks. Is that like how things are reflective, or do you have an emission shader on something that isn't looking right? Um, it could be a blend issue. It could be I don't know. I mean, feel free to DM me. You can send me a screenshot of your model, and I'd be more than happy to try and point you in the right direction. Kind of troubleshooting off the fly can be a little difficult just because there's so many there's so many things. Unfortunately, that can be potentially going wrong. That I wouldn't know what to fix, but I we could probably get to the bottom of it. I can help you take a look. Um, okay, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I have to sometimes models I'll upload maybe a dozen versions of something to Nifty, just kind of subtly back and forth, making little tweaks to the weight painting, to the materials. Very rarely do I find that I drag something in and it works on Nifty's end, but on my end, I'm usually a little bit particular of how things are. So I'll try and I'll go back and forth a little bit with Nifty to get things to be exactly how I want them. But once you get into a flow of knowing sort of Nifty's limitations, it gets a little bit easier. Sort of you know what to expect, how things might end up looking. Um, but getting started, there are a few like little, I guess, things that I probably picked up along the way that I just know to avoid, know to try and do. Um, but yeah, it's all just so specific and particular, it's hard to just kind of give, like, a blanket answer, because a lot of times I'm making a model, and I'll have things come up that I've never seen before, I've never dealt with, you have to kinda learn as you go a bit, but, it's part of the fun. Um I'm just trying to see now if I wanna if, I could add in some we could add in some little rivets, but I think I'm not going to do that because it wasn't on the concept, and I don't like how it looks after the fact anyway. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty much, those are the tricks. I mean, those are some skills. We built a lot of this thing. I can't believe how much of this I've made, and while I was talking here, I wasn't sure how much of this I was going to end up getting through. Um, but even just that, just 2 hours of modeling and texturing, it's really not that long in the grand scheme of things, and you can at the end of it, you can be left with a really really cool looking model for not a lot of work, not a lot of modeling work. As we saw, the modeling for this was really quite simple. Everything is really pretty basic shapes. And once you can define the basic shapes, most of the love is in the textures, to really bring something to life, really define what it is, where it's been through, um, stuff like that. Uh, and then you're good to go for Nifty. But yeah, I was planning on I'm gonna finish this up. I'm probably gonna put my logo on this screen in an LCD format. I don't know when I'll finish this. Unfortunately, I have a few avatars I'm currently building. But I do want to make this. I will make this a free claim for anybody who is interested in claiming it, and maybe claim it. Maybe there'll be something else for you. Maybe not. I don't know. I've wanted to do something cool at some point in Nifty. And maybe if you were here today and you end up claiming my drone, maybe you'll be on the cool guy list. Uh, but I'll need to finish this um, at some point, or I might even just upload it as is to see how it goes. Um, but I know I've been talking here for a little while. I don't want to. I don't know how much time I'm allowed. Thing, but I don't. Sure. Yeah. We're not. Sure. That is important. Sure. Yeah. Let's run through it. Let's export this, and I'll bring it back into the model. So I like to do. Oh, well, we can't do 4K for this one. Normally I would do 4K, but for this drone, only 2K is supported. So we're gonna go ahead and put that into 2K. We're going to find our folder here. I can do game textures. Feel free to organize as you like. I do PBR metallic roughness for all of my Substance Painter exports. I find that that works for me, and it looks great. Whether or not that's the right way to do it, feel free to if somebody has a better idea, feel free to let me know. I have found that this is what plugs in the most universally in Blender and in Nifty Island. So I've just exported my textures here in 2K. I'm going to go ahead and pop back into Blender, and we're going to put them all on our model. Now, we never assigned a material to this model, but we can just do that now, and it's not a big deal. We're going to just select everything and assign it to the drone. To now, one by one, plug in our maps that we generated here. We're going to start with our base map, and look at that. Just like that, most of it, most of the love, if you need anything, you need at least need your base color. If you were to only have one thing, but we have many things, and we will be using all of them. Let's take that down a little bit. We're going to bring in our various maps here. You do not need the height map for this. You can turn it off on the export settings if you want. When you are exporting your textures, if you wanted to click into this and turn off height map, I never use it. I just let it spit itself out because I don't know, it's quicker for me to let it just run out and me not use it than it is for me to turn it off. So I let it happen. But I have never used it for anything. Hang on. It's got to restart Blender here. So every now and then, Blender will do that thing where it won't quickly load my files on my computer, my image texture. So I'll just have to close Blender, open it back up. So I'm just going to do that really quickly right now, just so I don't have to sit here and make everybody wait while my thing loads. There we go. Let's finish adding in these textures. Get the metallic, plug that in to the metallic. Easy peasy. Roughness. I slap that into the roughness and into the specular. I don't know if that's right. That's how I do it, and that's what I think ends up looking really good in game. Which again is the goal here. So now that we have all of our textures into Blender, looking really nice, looking really cool. And look at that, we're only at 5,000 triangles. We are only at half the limit, so we are looking beautiful and perfect to get this into Nifty. So what we would do now, if we wanted to get this into Nifty, let's see how, I forget how to do this. We first would need to parent this to the shell, I believe. Ask away. Yes. Typically avatars that I make for Nifty, all of these avatars that were on screen earlier, all of my pretty much everything I make, I try and use for texture for the base color. Anything else, things like roughness maps, I will drop down to 2K if the 4K doesn't fit within the 80 megabyte Nifty limit. I'll take it right up to 78 if I can help it. I mean, obviously, less file size is more efficient, but Nifty is generous and they say, hey, have at it, take it to 80. And I find that for the most part, at least for most of these avatars here, either have full, okay, well, fully 4K tech, fully 4K textures. Can you hear me still, or did my computer freeze entirely? Okay, you can say, yeah, sorry. My computer currently sat because I'm trying to load in all these textures and I have Blender and I'm screen recording, which apparently takes up a lot of my computer. Anyway, I can still answer the question. As long as you can hear me. Yes, 4K textures Any place where you can. If the only reason I would not use a 4K texture is because if it's for a drone that only takes 2K, or if you're over the file limit. And then if you're over the file limit, I would selectively work my way down from the least important to the most important texture maps that need to be in 4K. The one to leave in 4K should always be at least the base color. If you can leave the base color in 4K, you'll be at least good to go with some detail. If you can keep the normal map in 4K, that looks really, really good. Though again, the normal map is usually the heaviest, one of the more heavy image sizes when it's in 4K. Usually they're about maybe 15 megabytes, which is quite a bit of that 80 megabyte limit, depending on how much detail you have on it. You can still hear me, right? Okay, sorry, I just my computer is